Okay. Yeah. Very good morning, students. And today we'll have our newspaper and let's discuss what's there in today's news. When we see the top articles here, there is a committee appointed to probe the PSLV failures. We have seen two repetitive failures of PSLV recently. So a committee was formed. And one more important news is PM's Israel visit. This is his second visit, and he is the first PM to visit the Israel 2 times. And we can see other news headlines. Yeah, there are headlines about yeah. Yeah, this is very important. 4 top Maoists are surrendered in the state. This is very important. Why? Because as a part of Operation Kagar, so our central government, our Minister of Home Affairs, so he has kept a deadline, March 31st. By March 31st, on the plan of Operation Kagar, will completely eliminate the left-wing extremism from the country. As part of that, so there are multiple operations, there are multiple members were surrendered, and multiple Naxalites were killed as part of this operation. And this is a big breakthrough for top Maoists, even a person from the Politburo, which is a top committee of the Naxalites, and he is even surrendered. So now the DGP, Telangana DGP, he said that Maoist movement is now headless, leaderless, and rudderless, because there is no direction, there is no head to maintain the Maoist, because they understood that this kind of armed rebellion in a democratic state it has no meaning in a long run. So they surrendered to the governments in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, in different places they are surrendered. That is one important news we can observe. And the second important news we can observe here, the engagement with the local people is key to mitigate human-wildlife conflict. What Supreme Court has said, that so Supreme Court should not give a judgment which is sitting in a Delhi and to give the judgment which is happening in the human life in the jungle. So that is what Supreme Court said. We can easily observe that. So southern states, the wildlife, the Supreme Court Tuesday said that deeper understanding of the reasons of the behind human wildlife conflict in southern states cannot be gained by court orders passed from thousands of miles away. And it has issued some guidelines. There is an issue which has to address not by court orders. Court orders should not court orders to kakunda, but through humanitarian approach. ఈ హ్యూమన్ వైల్డ్ లైఫ్ కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్ ని ఒక కోర్ట్ ఆర్డర్ తో కాకుండా ఒక హ్యూమానిటేరియన్ అప్రోచ్ లో దీన్ని సాల్వ్ చేయాలి అని it has given some kind of a suggestions also. How? Like we have to, by reaching out to them, you have to speak their language, understand their issues, every issues, akkarunna people issues, maybe tribals or the people who are residing there, their issues and their economic conditions, and how certain people or interests are even alluring them. So ikkada enti ante the more best way to solve the human wildlife conflict is to engage the locals in more humanitarian approach anedi court was clearly telling. And you have to educate them, you have to alarm them, you have to tell the situation, you have to understand the situation, then you have to solve this issue in a humanitarian ground. And this is what some suggestions it has given. That is the importance of this article. And the second important article with the editorial, in the editorial, this is very important. Israel today, our Prime Minister started his visit to Israel. So what is important? Why? Because the region, the Gulf region is one of the more destabilized region at present, because you know, we don't know when the Iran-US war, when US attacks the Iran, we don't know exactly. Everyone in the world is on their tender hooks to watch when this war will erupt. And also the recent issues. So So we know we have the Gulf of, so this is Strait of Hormuz, Hormuz Strait, and we have the Israel here, right? And we have Gaza Strip, Palestine, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, Oman, Yemen. So at present today, our Prime Minister is starting his trip in the Israel. Israel is very, very important. Why it is important? Because it is strategically located in the Gulf region. And India in a 2023, we conducted G20 summit. In the G20 summit, we launched one important initiative. One of the important outcome of the G20 summit, IMEC, India Middle East Economic Corridor. India Middle East Economic Corridor is very, very important, strategically very important, because India recently has signed a multiple trade deals. It has signed a trade deal with UAE, it has signed a trade deal with especially the Europe, Europe, and it has signed a trade deal with the UK. So for that, whatever this IMEC, which we have planned, the IMEC corridor, which starts from the Bombay and to the UAE and through the Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and it connects the Greece port here, which means it can secure a very good trade route to the entry towards the Europe, very good entry towards the Europe. And this securing this trade route is very, very important for India. It is only possible when there is a peace in the Gulf region. When there is peace in the Gulf region, this IMEC corridor is very much possible. So when we see in this article, we can see, so it has discussed about the issues. It is very unstable right now in the Gulf. That is in the first section we can see that is very unstable, but still India had its success in dehyphenating the Israel engagement. Dehyphenating in the sense means, so dehyphenization in the sense, so very, very important word when it comes to the international relations. The dehyphenization means when there are two hostile countries, in this case Palestine and Israel, there are two hostile countries, and when a country is maintaining a very good relations with both the countries, even they are usually both are hostile countries or enemy countries towards each other. If we are making friendship with one country and automatically the other country don't like, but India has achieved its success in maintaining a good relations with Israel and Palestine. Why? Even the recent visit, the today's visit of Prime Minister, which only completely confined to Israel, not to the Palestine. So that is one thing. The dehyphenization, India has achieved the success it is telling. And the SIPRI report, this is very important think tank from the Sweden, which gives the security data about the countries, like what about their defense budget, number of atomic weapons, so these kind of things. It has clearly told that 34% of Israel total arms exports between 2020 to 2024, nearly 1/3 of Israel arms exports were reached to Delhi, in the sense India. So we have very good defense partnership, and recently in the sense the last year we have seen the Operation Sindoor. Based on the Operation Sindoor, we also plan to arrange a mission Sudarshan Chakra. In the Sudarshan Chakra means anti-air defense. As part of the anti-air defense, we also kept the systems from the Israel నుంచి మనం తీసుకున్న Barak 8 missile system, which is very active in engaging the targets from Pakistan based aerial targets. చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఎంగేజ్మెంట్ చేస్తుంది. కాకపోతే ఏంటంటే ఇక్కడ ఒక ప్రాబ్లం ఉంది. We cannot continuously release the missiles. For example, a missile cost maybe 1 crore or 10 crores, but a drone from the Pakistan maybe much less than, maybe it's in the lakhs. So the cost effective ratio is not matching, right? We cannot kill 1,000 drones, which is costing only 1 lakh, with 1,000 Akash missiles, which is costing with 1 crore. So for that, we need much efficient, cost-effective system. That is, Israel recently it has an answer for those kind of engagement, that is Iron Beam. Iron Beam is a laser-based system. Iron Beam ఏంటిది అంటే it's based on 100 kilowatt class energy laser system, which is capable of intercepting. Just ఒక cost-effective ratio గురించి. So to bring the better cost-effective solution and more efficiency, so Israel has a Iron Beam option. So now maybe there are some talks that Prime Minister may request Israel to purchase this Iron Beam system from Israel. That is one important thing. And other important thing about the Israel visit is, when we are discussing about the Israel-India partnership, we only think about the defense partnership. But there is another important elements after the defense partnership is agriculture. So we have a huge relationship with very strong relationship with Israel. We also benefited the Israel inventions in the agriculture. That is also one of the very important part. And Israel's second largest trade partner in Asia, with bilateral trade of 3.7 billion. So దీన్ని $7 billion కి దీన్ని $7 billion కి ఇంప్రూవ్ చేద్దాం అనేది నెక్స్ట్ టార్గెట్. And there are talks going on between Israel and India also may sign free trade agreement. That is also very important. And what are the other important from this article was Gaza peace process, the regional dynamic. మనకి తెలుసు రీసెంట్ గా బోర్డ్ ఆఫ్ పీస్ అనే దాన్ని, so like who started? The Donald Trump has started, and he also invited India to be part of board of peace. A board of peace లో భాగంగా around recent summit 50 countries are participated. India also participated as an observer nation, not as a member. So which the main purpose to establish a peace in this Gulf region. ఈ గల్ఫ్ రీజన్ లో పీస్ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ అయితే ఇండియాకి వచ్చే benefit ఏంటి అంటే, one of the important benefit, as I said in the beginning of the article, India has signed multiple trade deals with many countries, especially with the EU. What the EU Commission chairman of that time, she has said that EU-India deal is a mother of all deals, which means you can imagine the scope of that deal. So to achieve that scope, to utilize this deal 100% most efficiently, we need a IMEC corridor, which enables us to connect the Europe easily without relying on Suez Canal. So that is important. Yeah. And one more important thing was the Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He is proposing a hexagon of alliances, a kind of alliance, a kind of a intelligence sharing alliance, or there is no clear picture up to now, but he is proposing one alliance, intelligence sharing alliance, or a kind of a military alliance with the African nations, Arab nations, Mediterranean nations, and nations in Asia, and he wants India to be a part. Mostly these alliance was targeted against Iran. So might be India will not join in this alliance. That is one thing. So these are some important highlights of this article, and when we'll go to the next article, India's strategy in a multipolar world. India's trade strategy. Why India's trade strategy is very, very important? Because exports is one of the very chief resource of income. If India want to be a developed nation, its exports are very, very important. So now it has a plan. In 2023, India has its foreign trade policy, and which is it kept very ambitious target, $2 trillion. $2 trillion by 2030. 2030కి $2 trillion ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ టార్గెట్ ని ఇండియా పెట్టుకుంది. అయితే ఇప్పుడు ఎంతవరకు అచీవ్ చేసింది? బై ద టైం 2025కి $825.25 billion ట్రేడ్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ టార్గెట్ ని ఇండియా అచీవ్ చేసింది, విత్ ఏ గ్రోత్ రేట్ ఆఫ్ 6% యాన్యువల్ ఇంక్రీజ్. 6% యాన్యువల్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతుంది. సో ఇండియా trade strategy in multipolar world means a world with multiple power nations, not a single nation, not a unipolar or a bipolar world. So ilanti situation lo a trade, very good trade policy is very important. So here it has given some inputs. Elanti inputs icharu other in this article lo ante, like we have, he has mentioned that free trade agreements is one of the important key. Free trade agreements వల్ల ఏమవుతుంది అంటే will make our exports cheaper, even though we have to make our import we have to make the import from those countries cheaper, but it also makes our exports cheaper. If we make our exports cheaper, if we take our India UK trade deal, so lot of our MSMEs, textile makers, leather, these kind of handicrafts will all become cheap in the UK compared to any other country's products in the UK. So that is very important. So in that case, adi gurtunchukone em chesindi ante India, it has signed multiple trade agreements with European Union, UAE, UK, and also Australia. Maybe now the trade talks with the US is also interim trade agreement, also trade talks is also going with the US. So ఈ ట్రేడ్ అగ్రిమెంట్స్ వల్ల ఏమవుతుంది అంటే one of the fundamental goal was India want to actively integrate it into global supply chain. Global supply chain lo India want to deeply integrate. That is one of the very important thing. And a major development in India's trade agreement and India's EU trade agreement signed in 27. మనం చూసాం కదా, they became the chief guest of the Republic Day and they signed this trade agreement. And it covers nearly 2 billion people. It covers nearly 2 billion. India EU trade agreement lo 2 billion people will come under to this trade agreement. Ante kakunda, with the trade agreements, now India's 70%, more than 70% of exports, India pumpiche 70% exports, all comes under these trade agreements. These trade agreements. And India, 90% of traded goods will come under this trade agreement. So ఈ ట్రేడ్ అగ్రిమెంట్స్ వల్ల ఏమవుతుందంటే ఇట్ బూస్ట్ ఇండియాస్ ఎక్స్పోర్టర్స్, ఎస్పెషల్లీ టెక్స్టైల్స్, లెదర్స్, ఫార్మాస్యూటికల్, కెమికల్స్ అండ్ మెరైన్ ప్రొడక్ట్స్. ఇట్ ఎన్హాన్సెస్ ద ఇండియాస్ కాంపిటిటివ్నెస్ అగైన్స్ ఎక్స్పోర్టర్స్, బికాస్ బంగ్లాదేశ్ అండ్ వియత్నాం కూడా ఇండియాస్ కాంపిటిటర్స్ అన్నమాట. దే కెన్ ఆల్సో మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చర్ ద గూడ్స్ మచ్ చీపర్ రేట్ యాజ్ విత్ ద ఇండియా. సో వీళ్ళందరి దగ్గర నుంచి మన ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ ఫ్యూచర్ ని సెక్యూర్ చేసుకోవాలి అంటే ఇండియా హ్యాస్ టు సైన్ multiple trade agreements with these multiple countries. So that is what it is telling. And the deal with US, even with the deal with US also, it is going on. As per the recent news, the deal, the negotiation got suspended because of the Supreme Court ruling of cancelling all the trade tariffs on foreign countries. ఆ ట్రేడ్ టరిఫ్స్ మీద క్లారిటీ వచ్చేంత వరకు ఇండియా సస్పెండెడ్ ద, as per the recent news, suspended all the trade negotiations with the US. That is as per the recent news. But it also has given the four important, it has, in this article, it has given the four important dimensions ఇచ్చారు. ఈ ట్రేడ్ అంటే ఈ మల్టీపోలార్ వరల్డ్ లో మన ఇండియా కీ ట్రేడ్ స్ట్రాటజీని ప్రొటెక్ట్ చేసుకోవడం కోసం the author has given the four important dimensions. And one thing was, first, deeper engagement with advanced economies such as EU and the US provides India with the preferential access to some of the world's most lucrative and high demanded markets. Is significantly to strengthen the India's export potential global market presence. First thing enti ante, so because of these trade agreements, manakunna MSMEs ki ee market anedi manam provide chesina vallam avutam. So if you have a large companies, like we can imagine the same scenario of China. China has a huge export potential and huge export industries, from small scale to micro scale, even to the large scale industry. Similarly, we are also promoting the MSME culture. For MSME culture, it is on us, on Indian government to show the market. With this trade deal, we are securing a proper market for these MSMEs and other industries, other major industries. And FTAs, and second important dimensions is FTAs reduce the barriers on both exports and imports of intermediate goods, enabling Indian firms to integrate more effectively into the global supply chain. ఒకటి మనం మార్కెట్ ప్రొవైడ్ చేయగలిగాం. సెకండ్ థింగ్ ఏంటంటే వీఆర్ ఏబుల్ టు పెనట్రేట్ అండ్ ఇంటిగ్రేట్ ఇన్ టు ద గ్లోబల్ సప్లై చైన్స్ లో స్ట్రాంగ్ గా మనం ఇంటిగ్రేట్ అవ్వగలిగాం. అండ్ థర్డ్ థింగ్ ఏంటి అంటే ఇట్ ఇస్ అ హ్యూజ్ డిప్లొమాటిక్ విన్ అనమాట. If you are engaging actively in the trade with other countries, it means you are diplomatically very important for other countries when you are in a negotiation table. If you are very much integrated, like for example, all the future exports, maybe on the semiconductors or kind of chips or kind of rare earth elements, or you can take any kind of future technologies. If India is become actively part in the global supply chain and it has increasing its diplomatic presence automatically, that is very important. And in the fourth strategy and fourth and final at the core, what he proposed was, Manaki, if India want to project a Vikasit Bharat by 2020, 2047, India want to be a fully developed country, and securing these kind of economic partnership with all these countries and to the global supply chains is very, very important for projecting India as a global superpower and a developed country by 2047. So, Adi, what the author has said. And one more important article which I found was attracting a talent position in the abroad. Recently, US has increased the H1B visa to $100,000 in the sense almost nearly 1 crore. H1B visa filing, H1B visa filed that company or the person has to pay the visa fee as a nearly 1 crore Indian rupees. It's very, very, very huge. ఇక్కడ ఏం చెప్తున్నా, the article, the main theme of the article ఏంటంటే India has to use this opportunity because we know there are a lot of people who are graduates who are flying to US. India has to use these kind of visa restrictions into get the gain from converting the brain drain to, so in the article the main theme was to convert the brain drain to brain gain. So India has to take some steps. The author has recommended some steps how India has to take to benefit from these kind of uncertain situations in the visa arrangements. So what author has given? So already manaki alanti konni methods unnaya, like how some projects like yeah, he's telling that many people are looking to India now. Almost the 30% of US graduates, they want to come to India and settle. But what India has to do, వాళ్ళు వచ్చి సెటిల్ అవ్వాలి అంటే it has to make some kind of incentives, make some kind of schemes to attract. It has to make some kind of a magnets which attracts these people from the US or other countries. That's how India can develop its scientific potential. And what author has discussed here is Trump has triggered a geopolitical earthquake and the administration has coincided with the movement. ఈ H1B visa $100 as $100,000 పెంచితే what is the effect it's on India? Because most of the 71%, more than 70% beneficiaries of this H1B scheme is Indians. Obviously, any policy against this scheme will impact the 70% of Indians who want to settle in US. But దీన్ని అడ్రస్ చేయడానికి ఇండియా దగ్గర ఏమేమి స్కీమ్స్ ఉన్నాయి? He also mentioned that incentive schemes like global access to talent from India, e-migrate B 2.0, a Vajra scheme. There are multiple schemes like that he has mentioned, but those schemes the author has mentioned it is not up to mark. It has to modify a lot, and the state governments and the central governments has to provide an atmosphere, a cooling, a good sense of atmosphere where they can bring their families or they can settle very in a hospitable environment. That is very important. And mostly only Delhi మాత్రమే వీళ్ళని ఇప్పుడు ప్రెసెంట్ ఉన్న ఎవరైతే రిటర్నీస్ ఉంటారో return from the US or other countries, only Delhi is providing a very good environment for these returns, because అక్కడ మాత్రమే like a sophisticated universities, sophisticated research centers, sophisticated industries ఉన్నాయి. So this is one of the important dimension. So where you have to provide a very good research infrastructure for this returnees అనేది the author has pointing out. And one more important thing he is mentioning that, what he is mentioning that was, he has mentioned that the investment of R&D, what he has mentioned ikkada, which is very important. The author is mentioned, India is investing far below. India investing far below in the in research and development. Enta far below? It is even 0.616, around 0.67%. Very low as compared with the China. China almost investing 3% of their global GDP. 3% of their global GDP. If you take the Israel, it's almost 7% of their GDP. 6 to 7% around. So similarly, so India is investing way less than. So India is investing way less than R&D GDP. In our R&D GDP ratio is very less, only 0.64% of the GDP, which is far below than the US 3.4%, China 2.4%, and the Israel 5.7%. So ఈ ఇంబ్యాలెన్స్ ని ఖచ్చితంగా అడ్రస్ చేయాలి. ఒకవేళ ఇది అడ్రస్ చేయకపోతే డెఫినెట్లీ ఇట్ విల్ ఇంపాక్ట్ ఫర్ ద రిటర్నీస్ who want means మన మెయిన్ గోల్ ఏంటంటే we want to curtail or the control the brain drain. ఈ బ్రెయిన్ డ్రైన్ ని కంట్రోల్ చేయాలి అంటే ఇండియా హ్యాస్ టు ఇంక్రీజ్ ఇట్స్ స్పెండింగ్ ఆన్ ద జీడిపి రేషియో, జీడిపి టు R&D ratio. So that is one of the important part of this article. Unkoka important next article which I have seen was very small article, but that is very important. So this article, OpenAI, Anthropic accuse the Chinese rivals for the AI data theft. ఈ Chinese companies ఏమైతే ఉన్నాయో, the DeepSeek గాని, like there are some, like you see DeepSeek, Moonshot AI and Minimax, ఇవన్నీ Chinese AI companies. అవి ఏం చేస్తున్నాయంటే డిస్టిలేషన్ అనే ప్రొసీజర్ లో లైక్ దే ఆర్ స్టీలింగ్ ఆర్ యూజింగ్ దీస్ OpenAI and Anthropic to build their AI models better. So this is kind of a fraudulent అన్నమాట. It's not a accepted practice. So ఇక్కడ ఏం జరుగుతుంది అంటే యూజింగ్ దీస్ OpenAI and Anthropic, దాదాపు దీస్ DeepSeek, Moonshot and AI. So we'll discuss this. ఈ DeepSeek, Moonshot, ఈ Moonshot AI ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఏం చేస్తున్నాయంటే డిస్టిలేషన్ అనే ఒక ప్రాసెస్ లో సో ఈ DeepSeek, Moonshot మనం ఇప్పుడు ఆపరేట్ చేస్తాం కదా. సో వాట్ విల్ డూ విత్ ద ChatGPT and all, we'll send a prompt and the prompt will give the response. What they have done, they have created a 24,000 accounts, fake accounts, 24,000 fake accounts ఇవి క్రియేట్ చేసి they are using this, especially the Anthropic. It's a US based AI company. So what they are doing with the process of distillation and in the sense making their search engine much better, making their AI engine much better with the process of distillation. వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారు అంటే they created 24,000 fake accounts and they continuously using the Anthropic and OpenAI to make their models better, which is not a legal and which is also causing the IP rights of these companies. So which is not acceptable in these kind of a, అంటే చాలా cheap గా. So Anthropic and ChatGPT or OpenAI, they are investing lot of huge money in the R&D. ఈ ప్రాసెస్ లో ఏమవుతుంది అంటే, so these companies, the DeepSeek and Moonshot, ఇవేవైతే Chinese companies ఉన్నాయో, they can save huge amount on R&D. So that is the important thing. These Anthropic and ChatGPT వాళ్ళు find out చేశారు. They created the 24,000 cumulatively the fake accounts and they're using these search engines to make their engines much better in a very shortcut process or a very not acceptable, not a legal process. So that is what one of the main thing. As we have seen, AI firm Anthropic said uncovered campaigns by three China AI firms, DeepSeek, Moonshot, and Minimax, use the distillation to rapidly boost the performance of less capable one. వీటి వల్ల ఏంటంటే చాలా చీప్ గా దేర్ మోడల్స్ ఈ మోడల్స్ కన్నా బెటర్ గా పెర్ఫార్మ్ చేసేటట్టు దే కెన్ ట్రైన్ దెమ్. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద కోర్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఎడిటోరియల్స్ అండ్ న్యూస్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ టుడేస్ ఆర్టికల్. థ్యాంక్ యూ అండ్ విల్ సీ యూ టుమారో.
ఎప్పుడు సేమ్ టైం కదా.